Look, Amex credit cards, they're flashy, they're prestigious, and they come with a ton of perks. But today, I'm going to tell you why I hate them despite all of that. Well, sort of at least. Those of y'all that truly know me know that I do not actually hate Amex credit cards, but I definitely don't think they're for everybody, especially if you're anything like me. I know some of y'all clicked into this video just ready to furiously type some comment about how clueless I am, but just take a deep breath and try to hear me out today. I honestly think that you and I do agree on Amex credit cards, you just have to take the time to listen. So whether you're an Amex fanboy, a hater, or just somewhere in between, this video is for you. I could approach this video in a ton of different ways, but to keep things simple here, I want to break down the 4 main reasons why Amex credit cards are not for me or many of you out there. And don't get confused here either. I do think that basically every single credit card makes sense to get, at least for the welcome offer alone, if that is of course how you like to play the credit card game. So in making this, I'm not trying to convince you to never get Amex credit cards. Instead, I'm more speaking about them as keeper cards. With all of that out of the way, let's start with reason number 1. Their high annual fees are not always justifiable. It's no secret that Amex credit cards come with the highest annual fees on the credit card market, at least with their premium credit cards like the $695 Amex Platinum card and newly refreshed $325 Amex Gold card. And yes, their cards do come with some excellent credits and benefits to help offset those annual fees, but I fear that a lot of us with their cards are actually paying for benefits that we never really use. Or scarier than that, we're paying for perks that we force ourselves to use and then subsequently convince ourselves that we're getting positive value from. I think there's a really good reason why my videos about Amex credit cards being bad for people get such negative attention from Amex fanboys, and that's because a lot of them fall into the camp that I just listed, but don't want to actually face the fact that that could be true. I'm sorry, but I just cannot get behind the structure of Amex's premium credit cards that have basically all just become metal coupon books, especially when the only way that Amex ever updates these cards is by increasing their annual fees and adding more annoying credits for us to deal with on a monthly basis. I mean, the perfect example of this is going to be the updated Amex Gold card, which I've made a full video about, so I'm not going to go as in depth right now as I did in that video. But to hit on the highlights real quick, they raised the annual fee from $250 to $325, and to offset the annual fee increase, they added 2 new credits that totaled up to $184 worth of annual value. These credits can be easily used by a subset of Amex Gold card users, but a large portion of folks that have this card would have to go out of the way to use those credits. So while this card gives you positive value on paper, it only does so because of 2 new credits that you get to pay for to keep track of, plus its original 2 credits that you were already doing that for. And on top of that, they may even require you to go out of your way to make those credits useful. And if you're in that camp, I'm sorry, but this card is really just not for you. It's for those people who would naturally get value from those credits before having the card. And that's exactly why I canceled my Amex Gold card, despite the fact that in 2023, I technically got positive value from the credits on it. Since I went out of my way to use the credits, that does not mean that the card actually gave me positive value. All that means is that I actually spent more money on the card than I would have otherwise, not the other way around, which is what we tend to convince ourselves of. Here's something else to consider too. Do we really think that Amex would continue to raise their annual fees and add monthly credits if it wasn't making them a boatload of money? Of course not. I do understand that a big chunk of my audience is going to be on the far end of the spectrum from those who Amex makes the most money off of, but it truly does apply across the board. And remember too that my videos reach audiences that are much broader than just those credit card maximalists, so it'd be irresponsible for me to pretend that these cards are easy to get positive value from because they're really just not. So for those people that don't want to meticulously track every new credit and benefit that Amex adds to their cards, Amex cards are just not for them. Instead, they may very well be better off with a lower annual fee card like the Chase Sapphire Preferred at $95 that gives easy, practical value back to the consumer even if they don't use the credits on it. Take that even further and you end up at a card like the Capital One Saver One, which earns just 1 point per dollar less than the Amex Gold card does, but doesn't have any real credits for you to keep track of, and has no annual fee at all, meaning that you can just set it and forget it. So I urge you, before you sign up for that fancy Amex card that you want, really sit down and ask yourself if you would actually use these credits and benefits before having the card, and if not, it might be time to consider other options. One tool you can utilize to better manage your finances as a whole is Max Rewards. Max Rewards is an all-in-one credit card management app that allows you to track important information about your cards, even if your cards come from a multitude of different lenders. And recently, they've released a new feature to their paid tier of Max Rewards called Max Rewards Gold that I want to tell you more about today. The tool is called Recurring Charges, and naturally, it helps you track just that. Going into the app to look at it together here, at the top of the screen, you'll see that I'm on my home page, and right next to that little home icon is going to be the Recurring button. And now you can can see all of your recurring charges from all of your cards linked to the app, either throughout this month specifically, or you can go to all time. So obviously this gives you a ton of really interesting information about all the subscriptions that you pay for, active ones as well as inactive ones down at the bottom. But where things get really interesting is whenever you click into one of them individually, because that's where you can add some more customization. So as you can see, for one, it's telling you what card you are using for that subscription. You can also change the type here from subscription to bill or fee. You can then change the billing interval to whatever suits this best, but of course it automatically tracks it, so it should be right there. Then alongside some other helpful information, you can see the total spend that you've done on this recurring charge. And if you're somebody that has any credits or offers that have been activated on your card, which as y'all may know, Max Rewards Gold also automatically activates all of your credit card offers for you. You can see here all of the credits that you've earned on this specific recurring charge. But yeah, overall, just a ton of very interesting information here that can help you better manage your finances. And if you want to try out this new feature or the other Max Rewards Gold features, please be sure to download Max Rewards through the link in my description. And during the sign up process, if you enter the promo code Spencer, you'll get a 1-month discount off of your annual Max Rewards Gold subscription if you ever do decide to upgrade to it. Thank you to Max Rewards for sponsoring this video today, but let's get back into the content. The second reason Amex credit cards aren't for everybody is because their perks are targeted at higher spenders. The fact of the matter is that Amex's credit cards are targeted at those who live in a metropolitan area, who travel at least a few times a year and spend a ton of money on their credit cards. So who's the best demographic for that? That's going to be the high income business travelers. Going back to reason number one, these are the types of people that will naturally get value from the credits on Amex's credit cards without having to think about it at all. And even if they don't use all of them every month, I'd be willing to bet that the amount of spend they're running through their cards and the amount of rewards they're earning in return is going to far offset that annual fee. Amex's best perks, like the airport lounge access, the concierge service, the fine hotels and resorts collection, all of those are incredible, but really only if you're using them regularly. On the flip side, if you're somebody that doesn't really travel a lot or spend a lot on your cards, you might feel like you're paying for perks that you're either never going to use or have to go out of your way to do so. And again, that's exactly where I found myself with the Amex Gold card. Yeah, it definitely was cool for me to accumulate a ton of Amex membership rewards points on the card, but one day I took a step back and I realized that I could have earned just under that amount, or actually even more in some cases, with other credit cards on the market that don't have the same annual fees or benefits to keep track of. Further than that, I realized I actually already had those cards in my wallet. I didn't even have to go apply for new ones. For example, I had the Chase Sapphire Reserve and the Citi Strata Premier cards sitting in my wallet, but not getting a ton of use, mainly because I felt like I needed to be putting spend on that high annual fee Amex card instead. And then paying that annual fee on the Gold card further forced me to use the credits on it, which ended up just making my problem even worse. So if you're somebody struggling with this, here's an alternative for you. Instead of getting a duo like the Amex Gold and Platinum that's going to cost you a whopping $1,020 per year to hold, with the only real earning categories being 4x back on dining, groceries, and 5x back on flights, you could go get a duo like the Citi Custom Cash and Citi Strata Premier that's going to cover you at 3x on the dining and groceries, plus 3x on more categories, and 5x back on travel if that's what you use your custom cash for. And then if you wanted to, you could slot in a premium travel credit card like the Capital One Venture X at a $395 annual fee, bringing your total annual fees to $490. So you're paying less than half of what the Amex Duo would cost you, getting better earning categories, and getting relatively the same travel perks. For those of us that don't funnel tens of thousands of dollars through our high annual fee cards every year and care about the social status we think they provide, there are just so many options out there to choose from these days. And let's also not forget that Amex credit cards are late game credit cards, not for beginners or intermediates, which is who the majority of my audience is. Amex is known to be the one lender who doesn't really care about recent hard inquiries or open card accounts, so they should be the ones that you target later in your credit card game, but shouldn't really be a staple in your setup at the very beginning. However, thanks to a lot of people giving Amex cards some prestige, including myself, I'm not immune to this. Unfortunately, a lot of newer credit card users want Amex cards right off the bat. Moral of the story here is that Amex cards are designed for a very specific type of spender, but if you're not that person, you could be missing out on better rewards and perks from cards that just fit your lifestyle better. Now, speaking of rewards, that brings us on to the third reason why Amex cards aren't for everybody, that being that their reward structure can be a bit complicated. There is no denying the fact that Amex membership rewards points are among the highest valued point ecosystems out there, but at the same time, they are some of the easiest to redeem for the absolute worst value, so it requires a deeper level of understanding than some of the other point ecosystems do. And for the majority of my audience who maybe is not as advanced in the credit card points and miles game, this can be confusing and overwhelming. To attempt to keep things really simple here, to get the most value from your Amex points, you're going to want to transfer them out to Amex's transfer partners. And the list of partners that Amex has is really large, the largest out of of any point ecosystem. And while that sounds like a good thing, in many ways it is, but there are also some drawbacks to that, one of which being that not all of their partners do give you good value. And for the casual card user, they have more opportunities to use their points in the wrong way. I'm not going to cover every one of their partners in this video, might be a good idea for a future one. So instead, I'm going to say that if you use your points with the right partners, you can expect to get an average value of 2 cents per point. But to be clear, you're going to be needing to book either business or first class flights internationally, or maybe using airline alliances for domestic partners to get that kind of value or more. So once again, that just shows who Amex's credit cards are targeted at. Remember, this is the best way to use your Amex points, but there are many worse ways to use them too. And the main two that I'm going to touch on today are the travel portal and cashback. In general, the absolute base redemption rate that anybody takes for their credit card points should be 1 cent per point, at least with the transferable currencies, that is. And a lot of times, this is what you can get through lenders' travel portals. With Amex, on the other hand, at least when I had my gold card, most of the time I was seeing redemption rates of like 0.75 cents per point through their portal, which I would never redeem for. At the same time, though, this is better than redeeming your Amex membership rewards points for cashback with Amex, because that's only going to give you 0.6 cents per point unless you have the $695 Amex Platinum Charles Schwab version. Note that this is specific to Amex membership rewards points. If you have one of their cashback dedicated cards, you're going to get 1 cent per point for those redemptions. Now let's compare all this to my favorite lender, Chase, and their Chase Ultimate Rewards points. At a very minimum, you're going to get 1 cent per point through their travel portal if you just have one of their free Chase Ultimate Reward point earning cards. But if you add one of their higher tier cards, you actually increase the rate that you get through the portal to 1.25 cents per point if you have the Chase Sapphire Preferred or Chase Ink Preferred, or 1.5 cents per point if you have the Chase Sapphire Reserve. As with every travel portal, including Amex, you're going to want to make sure that the cash rates are actually competitive with the hotel or airlines websites. But if they are, these boosts that you get in the travel portal with Chase's cards can be really solid deals for domestic travelers specifically, especially if you have the Chase Sapphire Reserve. And then on the cashback side of things, Chase's Ultimate Rewards points can always be redeemed for 1 cent per point, no matter what Chase Ultimate Reward point earning card you have. And then on top of all of this, if you have the Chase Sapphire Preferred, Chase Sapphire Reserve, or Chase Ink Preferred, you can transfer your Chase Ultimate Rewards points out to their travel partners. And with their special partnership with Hyatt, you actually may be able to get a more consistent high value for your Chase points than you would Amex points. So this is why Chase cards are so powerful, especially for those who aren't quite sure if they want to be on that team cashback or team travel side of the credit card game. Chase provides flexibility of redemptions, while Amex really only gives you one main option. But if you're willing to put in the time and effort, Amex membership rewards points can be extremely valuable. Then again, though, if you prefer simplicity and optionality at a very low cost or no cost at all, there are just better cards out there for you. Now let's move into reason number 4, which is that Amex's credit cards have low acceptance worldwide compared to Visa and MasterCard. Don't get upset at me now. I understand that American Express's acceptance has increased over the past few years, especially in more populated cities, but it's still not as widely accepted as a Visa or MasterCard. Speaking on the US in particular, most places are going to accept Amex these days, but there are some big retailers like Costco who don't. So that could obviously be a big drawback for somebody that gets their groceries at Costco, because then you don't get the 4x back that the gold card provides. Further than that though, using your Amex cards internationally is where things get really tricky. And if you are somebody that fits Amex target demographic, then you should be traveling internationally, meaning that this applies to you. Sure, many Amex credit cards do not have foreign transaction fees on them, but that doesn't really matter if your Amex card is not accepted in the first place. And the reason for this, if you haven't heard, is because American Express charges higher merchant fees than the other card networks out there. In other words, it's more efficient for many businesses, especially the low margin ones, to take Visa or MasterCard instead of an Amex card. According to the Nelson report in 2022, Visa credit cards made up about 39% of transactions worldwide. And then not too far behind that, MasterCard was sitting at 24%. In comparison, American Express credit card transactions only made up 4.6% of all credit products around the world. So needless to say, if you're a frequent traveler, it's very important to keep a no foreign transaction fee Visa or MasterCard as a backup in case your Amex isn't accepted. Now, this is probably the reason out of this list is going to get the most pushback. So let me push back on that pushback. Is carrying a backup Visa really all that difficult? Obviously not. But say I'm somebody again that's paying $1,020 for the Amex Duo that pride themselves on being the best travel credit cards out there. At the very least, for that cost, I would expect that I can actually use those cards no matter where I'm shopping. And this is not something that just never happens, by the way. I experienced this exact thing on a trip to Cancun. My all-inclusive resort in a very popular destination for tourists would not take my Amex Gold card. Luckily, I had my Chase Sapphire Preferred with me at the time to cover all of my expenses with no foreign transaction fees. But if I didn't have that card in my wallet, wallet, I would have been out of luck. And again, I was paying $250 for a card, which is now actually costing people $325. That was literally just completely useless to me on that trip. And let's not forget too that if these cards are accepted internationally, they have certain earning categories that won't do anything for you because they're only active in the US. Specifically those being like the 4X back on supermarkets that the Amex Gold gives you, or if you're somebody with the Amex Blue Cash Preferred that covers you at a bunch of 6% and 3% categories, all of those are only US based too. So similar to all of the rest of the reasons here, if you're somebody that values simplicity and convenience, Amex's credit cards may let you down. So do I really hate Amex? Not at all. It's just that they're not the best fit for everybody. And my audience is made up of a majority of people who their cards are not really made for as keeper cards. Remember, again, I think that you should be able to go for any of their cards, get the welcome offer on it, and then choose what to do with it after that year. But that doesn't mean that you need to keep them long term. If you are somebody though that travels a lot, and I mean more than the average person, and loves premium perks, yes, Amex's credit cards are amazing and you don't need to write up some hate comment down below. But for the rest of us, there may be better cards out there, and that's why I make the videos that I do. None of this is clickbait, albeit some of it might be a little bit of rage bait for the Amex fanboys. But jokes aside, my stance on Amex's credit cards have always been the same. If you fit their target demographic and you like their credit cards, more power to you. That's awesome. But at the same time, we seriously need to ask ourselves if we do fit that. And if you're like me and you don't fit that, at least right now, and are curious to see what types of setup might fit your needs better, go ahead and click into this video next. And as always, Odin and I both want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and we'll catch you guys next time.